Hello everybody, this is your sad neighbourhood pirate BonOakley, and I have a confession to make. The reserve shooter should not have been nerfed in the Jungle Inferno update. But BonOakley, didn't you make multiple videos saying the reserve shooter should be nerfed, as well as even make a video on how it should be nerfed? Well yeah, but there was one thing I kept forgetting throughout making all of those videos, surprisingly. So I'm going to explain my backtracking and try to get my point across on why the nerf to it was pretty pointless. So I don't really have to explain my distaste of the reserve shooter before Jungle Inferno. There's plenty of videos already out there, as well as most of you already knowing my feelings about it. It was overpowered, no question about it. The reserve shooter rewarded pirates for doing the most basic action, air blasting, by letting them do more damage against enemies who are in the air. Due to the behaviour of the air blast back then, the person being air blasted could do nothing about it and would have to take the full damage, while the pirate only had the repercussion of having 2 less shots in a round. Yeah, totally fair, am I right? And I thought the nerf for the first few weeks of the Jungle Inferno was long overdue, and was quite happy with how they did it by actually removing the mini crits for air blasted enemies, something I had been suggesting for quite a while. In return, they did mini crits to thermal thruster pyros instead, so it seemed like it was finally balanced for both soldier and pyro. The thing is, now it's more powerful in the soldier's arsenal. Again, in the first few weeks of the Jungle Inferno update, the one thing I kept forgetting about was the fact that the flamethrowers were being changed in a huge way, and one of the big changes to them was the way air blasts worked. No longer was it possible to just pop an enemy into the air, as it had been changed completely. Before Jungle Inferno, when a pyro air blasted an enemy, they would have been thrown into the air with the same force and in the same angle every time. There was no difference depending on where you air blasted them, they would always go in the same direction and speed every single time. This made it ridiculously easy for pyros to shoot enemies in the air with the reserve shooter. The changes now require pyros to actually think about how they air blast. What was at first a simple way of getting enemies out of your face has now become a mechanic to master in its own way. Similar to rocket jumping, but not as complex of course. The force of the air blast is much stronger now, meaning they can be pushed further away than before. But that's not it, the angles of the air blast have also been changed. This means that pyros, now alongside the Dragon's Fury, have to actually aim to be effective with it. Let me give some examples. If you push an enemy like normal, they don't go as far or in the same way like before. So let's try and lower down their body. Yep, they hardly move again. Or how about near their head? Oh, well would you look at that, they moved further away this time. As you can see, the angle at where you aim the air blast actually matters now. This means a lot of things. 1. The pyro cannot just simply shove enemies off a point or payload as easily anymore. 2. Pyro duels where each pyro likes to air blast each other to death now take more thought in doing so, as you can't just spam the mouse 2 button. And 3. Enemies have a much easier time controlling their movements in the air, making it much less of a one-sided battle. But the main thing that a lot of pyro players, including myself, love to do was combo into shotgun or flares. However, this is no longer as easy as it once was. Yes, it is certainly possible still, but now instead of an easy switcheroo, the pyro has to somehow, in the heat of battle, aim somewhere at the enemy so they can get them into the air properly without looking like a doofus first, and then switch to their secondary. And most of the time they will have landed before you even get the chance to hit them. Slower moving characters will of course be slightly easier to hit still, such as Heavy and Soldier, but faster smaller characters like Scout, Sniper and Spy can now easily escape, leaving the pyro to fumble around and try and hit them again, and before they know it they've probably been killed. So what does this actually mean for the reserve shooter? Well, it makes the whole point of the nerf meaningless now. If the mechanics of the air blast was kept the same, then the change would make so much more sense. But like I said, I completely forgot about air blast being changed in the update. So now that it takes more time and thought to get an enemy high enough in the air to do a decent combo, it would somehow make the reserve shooter doing mini crits on air blasted enemies fair. Like I said, Soldier has an easier time combo with a reserve shooter now than the pyro. This isn't to say the soldier's method of using it is somehow like the pyro used to have it, far from it. It still takes a lot of skill to be able to use it effectively for the soldier. What I'm saying is removing the mini crits on air blasted enemies attribute is pointless now that the method of gaining said crits has also been changed. Let's say there's a person with no legs and a staircase. Obviously the person is going to struggle to even attempt walking up the stairs. One day they get prosthetic legs, making it much easier to deal with the stairs. However, the stairs are now gone and have been replaced with a steep slope. It now makes the fact that they have legs pointless, as they still can't get up the staircase. As weird as of an analogy as that was, it's pretty much the same with a reserve shooter. Now that air blasting enemies in the air with ease is gone, it makes the removal of the attribute pointless too. Overall, the reserve shooter should have never been changed alongside the new way the air blast works. Now that it's harder to air blast, it makes it harder to gain mini crits on enemies in the air. This in turn would make gaining the mini crits feel like a much bigger reward for the pyro, as they have to have more skill in using it effectively. But alas, instead of balancing it for both classes, it is essentially dead for pyro now. But what's your take on this? Do you think the reserve shooter still deserves a nerf? Or do you think it shouldn't have been touched due to the new way air blasting works? Voice your opinion using the poll that's just popped up in the top right corner, and I'll reveal the results in the next video. Thanks for watching guys, this has been your friendly neighbourhood pyro BonOakley, and rest in peace reserve shooter.